historians, and welcome to another episode of Zay Historicizes. This is the 11th edition now to Unhinged News Stories of the past, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say today's stories do come off of a newspaper, not a magazine. On the 9th edition, I know I did Ebony, and then on the 10th I did Jet, but all of the stories today do come off of a newspaper. They all come off of the Buffalo Corrier Express on their issue dated December 29th of 1928. So we're in the roaring 20s again. Last time I was here, it was in Seattle in 1925. So there's a lot going on. It's also the era of Prohibition, and the Great Depression is literally right around the corner. But just some background on the Buffalo Corrier Express. It was actually a merger put together by William J. Connors of the Buffalo Morning Express and the Buffalo Daily Courier. So he took the Buffalo Daily Courier, the Buffalo Morning Express, put those together, and you had the Buffalo Courier Express. So that's some background there on the Buffalo Courier Express. It ran from 1926 till about 1982, which means it ran much later than any of the other papers I've ever done on Unhinged News Stories of the past. And during its peak, it had a circulation of over 300,000. So it was a fairly popular paper. But again, that is just some background on the Buffalo Courier Express, in which all of today's stories are going to be coming out of. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this tea. Of course, this tea is almost a century old, so I won't recommend drinking it, but we're gonna go ahead and do that because there's a lot of Unhinged to cover here today. Let's go ahead and get into today's stories, and I'll just go ahead and start with this really funny story titled "Leap Year Husband Thinks Wife's Role is Breadwinner. Truckman Decides to Let Mate Be the Provider. Court's Views Differ, However." Chicago, December 28th. Herman Matten, 45, a truckman, figured that if he delayed marriage until leap year, and a woman proposed, it would be up to her to be the breadwinner for the family. It came about that he was married last April, and immediately thereafter decided his worries about making a living were over. He simply passed them over to Ida, his wife. I had to have him arrested 6 times because he would not work, his wife told Judge Jonas today. He claims that leap year husbands do not have to work. Every time I brought up the question of providing funds for our needs, he became disorderly. The question is new to me, admitted the judge, but leap year or not, he will have to bring you $10 a week. January 18th, I will have him in court again to see if he has changed his mind. But right now, he must post $100 cash bond and go out and get a job. I cannot see where leap year is any excuse for chronic laziness. So this is a story that really stood out to me just because it said leap year husband thinks wife's role is a breadwinner. However, I was looking into the idea of a leap year husband, and it actually goes back to Irish and Scottish folklore that on a leap day, February 29th, a woman can propose to a man. That's like the one time a year, I guess, where a woman can propose to a man. And of course, the kicker of that is that she is like the active partner, like the provider, essentially. So it's not like the whole year, but it's February 29th. And I found these really funny, old-timey Edwardian era cartoons, and just this art from the Edwardian era of leap year husbands, and the woman being the one taking care of her man and proposing to him and all of those things. So that is just the first story that I wanted to share. I thought it was very interesting, and that's something I've never heard of before, the leap year husband. Regardless, the judge wasn't buying it, so he's gonna have to get a job. Hopefully he did just that. If not, I hope Miss Ida went on her merry way. I've been watching some of my videos back, and I love how Ati just makes these cameos that I'm sometimes not even aware of because it's happening behind me. This next story I'm gonna read. Listen, okay, this is titled "Sips Antifreeze, Car Tonic, Then Dons Woman's Coats." Fluid came from garage, but police will help him discover source of wearing apparel. Chicago Tribune, and this is Chicago, it's just so funny to me. Okay, this is December 28th, that same day. It takes a hotter alibi than a fur coat to warm the story heart of policeman Timothy Mikosh, a stern minion traveling out of Maxwell Street Station today. He met up with Thomas Gordon, who was wearing a uniform that even startled blase South Halsted Street, which has seen everything and heard everything. Officer Mikosh shouted for Mr. Gordon to pause while he questioned him about his makeup, but Mr. Gordon sped away from there. After a heated chase, he was concerned. "My brother, Felder, runs a garage," he spluttered. He has many now automobiles in winter. They freeze it up and then they won't run. Yes, yes, go on, urged Mikosh. So my brother Felder puts it in the no-freeze stuff out of a bottle, and the automobiles do not freeze. So I thought it might be good for other things. Me, I'm freezing all the time, so I drink it now, 2 quarts of this no-freeze liquid, and now, Gostel drink, I do not need it, an overcoat. Okay, yes, that's all very fine, and I want the boys at the station to hear about it, says Mikosh, so he called the patrol wagon. But you can't arrest me for drinking antifreeze mixture, protested Mr. Gordon. Of course not, but I want you to explain to the Sarge how it comes you are wearing a woman's fur coat. Help me, officer. I didn't know I had it, and I don't know where I got it. Perhaps now I took too much of that mixture. So over what is left of the Ollie days, the police will try to help Thomas to remember where he picked up a woman's costly fur coat. Okay, y'all, this is New York in the 1920s. I'm not gonna say the Hamilton Lodge balls, but do you think he could have been a participant? Huh? Was his his second life and he just happened to not take off his woman's coat? The whole story is crazy because why are you drinking antifreeze? And then you really sit there and be like, it's gonna help me get warm, because I'm pretty sure that's what he was trying to say. I'm like, what are you even doing? Boy, bye. Anyway, I just wanted to share that story as well because, of course, Unhinged, but that's why we're here. This next story is Harris divorces husband with highball complex. I'm just gonna put this into perspective. It's 1928, okay? So this is the era of Prohibition. Up until 1933, this is the era of Prohibition. This is 1928. And there's a lot of alcoholism and stuff involved in some of these stories. But I'm just going to go ahead and say, and continue this story. So, mate was sober occasionally for weak periods, Chicago woman tells court. Now, it's the fact that all these stories are from Chicago, but this is a Buffalo, New York paper. I don't know if they have some sort of vendetta against Chicago's. Anyway. So, Chicago, Illinois, December 28th, that same day. Okay. Miss Catherine Baker Spalding, heiress to a $30 million estate, was granted a divorce today from Howard Henry Spalding, whose family has been socially prominent in Chicago for 3 generations. She charged habitual drunkenness. She waived all money, and he did not contest the case. Miss Spalding testified her husband began drinking excessively about 6 years ago. How often was he drunk? Asked Judge Joseph Sabbath. His name is Judge Joseph Sabbath. Okay. I couldn't give any definite number of times, Miss Spalding replied. His habit has been to drink continually for 2 or 3 weeks. Then there would be a lapse of perhaps a week, and then he'd start drinking again. In the last 2 years, it has been worse and worse, more so all the time, she continued. Miss Spalding is a daughter of John H. Baker of Michigan City, one of the world's largest manufacturers of railway cars, who died in 1910. The Spaldings were married in July of 1915. So she really is inheriting a really, really huge fortune, $30 million. $30 million in 1928 is worth $563,973,684.21 today. So that is a massive fortune that she is sitting on, which is exactly why she could leave her constantly, habitually drunk husband. And again, this is still the era of Prohibition, so he really shouldn't be drinking anyways. But I don't know. I guess she just had enough, and she decided that she no longer wanted to be with that man. I do like how it's titled here. Mate was sober occasionally for weak periods, Chicago woman tells in court. So I guess his thing was binge drinking for weeks, and then he'd stop drinking for a week or 2. But I really hope that he got the help that he needed, okay? I hope he definitely had his alcoholism cured before 1933, because of course when it became legal again, it could have destroyed him. Plus the Great Depression, yikes. At least you got out of there quick. This next story it's a short one, but it's Prohibition themed too, so it's Prohibition core, but this is titled Refuses Wine Gift. 68 bottles of liquor meets ignominious fate. Every single time I read these old stories, I always read these words for the first time, and I'm like, I have to throw that into my vocabulary somehow. This is Clearwater, New York, December 28th. Miss Alexander Hayden of New York in Clearwater thought a friend in New York was joking when he told her he might send her a few bottles of wine. So it was a total surprise to her, she told a United States commissioner, when a shipment of 68 bottles of liquor was delivered. She refused it, and it was confiscated later by federal agents. She was acquitted of a charge of violating the Prohibition law. Do you think she lied? Do you think that she really asked for it, and then she's like, I don't know how these got here. How so crazy. And who's the man who sent it to her? They didn't even give his name. He probably got money. This next story I'm going to read, I'm going to follow up with a bit of an explanation here, but this is titled Mysterious Missive Tells Father That Child Had Happy Christmas Is Well Treated. New York, December 28th. Detectives working on the disappearance of Grace Budd, the 10-year-old girl who was entrusted last June to a stranger who called himself Frank Howard, a farmer from Farmingdale, and has not been seen since, had a new clue today, which tonight had brought them no nearer to solution of the kidnapping. Albert Budd, the child's father, received a letter signed Howard, mailed from the Pennsylvania station here the day after Christmas. It stated that Grace has had a happy Christmas with some people who were very good to her. She wanted to write to her daddy a Christmas letter, but for reasons I couldn't let her, it concluded. The writing checked with no other letter received in the case, and there was nothing to indicate to authorities whether it was genuine or another hoax. The Budds had spent a sad Christmas, for Miss Budd is ill in Bellevue Hospital. So this is a very interesting case that got a lot of attention in New York at the time, and this was the disappearance of Grace Budd. And Grace Budd is one of probably the most known victim of serial killer Albert Fish. So this is still in the era where Albert Fish was out committing his murders, and Albert Fish was notorious for writing letters to victims' families. He actually sent the Budd family another letter in 1934, which is when he was eventually caught and sentenced to death. But he did admit after he was caught that he had essentially taken Grace and murdered and actually cooked and eaten her. So it's a very, very psychotic story. Albert Fish isn't a serial killer that a lot of people think about, certainly not like a Dahmer or, a Ted Bundy or Edward Gein, people like that. But genuinely, it's just an absolutely awful, and he's just I don't even really want to get into it, but he did operate mainly during the progressive era, which is maybe why he isn't as infamous as some of the other serial killers. But I was fairly familiar with Albert Fish, and this is also a paper essentially in real time when he was still going around being deranged and murdering people. So Grace Budd was likely, in my opinion, already past, she was likely already dead by this time, but he was writing letters to victims' families, and I thought that was an interesting story that I wanted to share as well. This next really quick story is titled Quarrel Over Pig Cost Life, and this is Brownsville, Pennsylvania. Andy Jessic, 25, a striking coal miner living in the Union Barracks at Vestburg, was shot and killed last night by John Bella, 43, also an occupant of the barracks. The men, it is said, argued about a pig. Bella, claiming Jessic stole the porker from him. The argument ended in the shooting, the bullet striking Jessic in the neck. That's a very, very unfortunate story, and all over a pig at that, but RIP to Jessic. This last one that I'm going to read was just a little funny to me, but it's titled Rules to Avert Flu. So listen closely. Red Cross takes hand in fights to curb disease. Washington, D.C., December 28th. In an effort to aid in control of the spread of influenza, the American Red Cross forwarded today to all of its chapters a statement by Dr. William Decleen, the organization's national medical director, outlining 10 rules to be followed by the public in fighting the disease, that's influenza. The rules were similar to those recently formulated by Surgeon General Cumming of the Public Health Service. The chef recommendation of Dr. Decleen was that the people who have contracted a severe cold should go to bed and stay there. Period. Okay? Until they have completely recovered, of course. Meanwhile, the Public Health Service today was keeping a close watch of the nationwide situation in regard to the disease, but no new developments were recorded. Go to bed and stay there. That's it. Just go to bed and stay there until you're cured. I'm sure that's all they could have done in the 1920s anyway, but I just find it so hilarious. I'd be reading this paper in 1928 oh my God, the doctor has something for me. go to bed and stay there. Just go the hell to sleep and don't come out until you're cured. Quarantine yourself because you're gonna get others sick. Nasty. That's like, it's like giving that energy. You know what I'm trying to say? It's just so funny to me. Anyway, those were just some of the stories that I wanted to share for today. Of course, those were, again, all off of the Buffalo Courier Express on their issue dated December 29th of 1928. That is the nearly 1 century old tea that I have for you guys today. And like with all the other stories I've read, they're all passed away now. Again, thank you guys so much, as always, for watching. And I hope you guys have a fabulous rest of your week. Usually when I post these, it's like we're halfway through the week, but I don't think this is going to be too long. But again, I hope you guys have a fabulous rest of your week. Enjoy your days, and I will see you next time here on Zay Historicizes. Thank you.